Hello once again, so soon. I was going to do a completely different video about something completely different. It was suggested to me that I recount my experiences in Finland and extol the virtues of a great country, which it certainly is, in my opinion. But I'm sure there would be a lot of older generation in Finland that would definitely disagree with me and say that it's nowhere near as good as it was. And the idea was for me to share my photographs and then tell a story about that photograph. It's not so easy as I thought, because adding pictures to a video is certainly not straightforward. Apparently I need to download some software, so I will content myself with another rant about our corrupt and stupid world. I asked myself a question: is the conflict in the East just another war, or is it something more than it appears? And I personally think the latter. We have something foisted upon us through propaganda, and we are certainly not being told the truth. And sometimes we are not being told anything at all, which is another lie. And all wars are usually fought because someone else has something that you want from them. And they're mostly instigated by old men in high places. Well, I say men, they're more like grown-up children fighting over marbles, except today they're being fought over resources. And sadly, young men and innocent bystanders will die in the process without a shadow of a doubt, on both sides. I hate the point of siding in a war. It's like siding at two brothers fighting. You certainly don't intervene, and you certainly don't arm one of them with a gun. And all wars cost lives of thousands. And those thousands of ordinary people don't want wars. And the ordinary people, when the war is finished, they write songs and poems and make films about the futility of war. But it doesn't make any difference. It still happens time and time again. What is wrong with us? What is wrong? And that there have been many anti-war songs and films to touch our hearts and our consciences, but it's all in vain. I recently came across a piece of music that I've always loved, and it was written by a Welshman, Vaughan, just before the outbreak of World War I. And what is known about what happened, Vaughan was holidaying in Kent, in Margate, on the very day that Britain entered the First World War. And he seemed to know what was coming. And although Margate wasn't an embarkation point, the ships were still in the channel exercising. And the composer later told the story that the tune came into his head as he walked along the cliffs and heard the skylark. And at that point he started jotting down the notes for his composition. But his jotting down was noticed by a young scout, a schoolboy scout, and he reported him to the police, and he was arrested because he thought he was writing where the ships are to the enemy or whatever. And of course it was soon sorted out, and Vaughan went on to compose his masterpiece, of which I'll leave in the descriptions, and that'll be under more in bold letters. And perhaps he viewed the moment he heard that skylark as a moment of calm before the storm that was actually going to envelop the whole world, and thousands upon thousands of young men would meet their fate on Flanders Field. And there's a little excerpt from the poem of Flanders Fields, which I found quite touching and realistic. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarcely heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunsets glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Just memories for our loved ones. Quite appropriate, I think. and that goes for all wars. There's always young men. And they celebrate those deaths with poppies. The enormous propaganda at the time, which we're going through right now, funnily enough, but at the time there was a big poster with Lord Kitchener, and he had his finger pointed directly at you, saying, "Your country needs you." And it was a rallying cry to entice young men to fight for their country. And all because some maniac shot a duke in a far-off country few have ever heard of, Serbia. Ringing any bells for you? Well, I'm sure it does for America in 1999. Consequently, 20 million people died, and 21 million were wounded in World War I. Some of those poor souls were even shot by firing squad for desertion, regardless of the fact that they were probably suffering from shell shock at the time. Wars never actually achieve much. Only for the survivors to say, we must never ever let this happen again. But of course it does happen again, time and time again. And you may ask, when will we ever learn? And where have all the young men gone? I'll tell you, they've gone to graveyards, everyone, with only a poppy to remember them. What a barbaric race the human beings are, and how now we enter the theatre of war once again. And we have psychopaths on both sides. One is a cokehead, and the other group are intent on escalation no matter what the circumstances. There is no room for negotiations. Why? Why is that not? Why aren't negotiations happening? I don't know. But they're not. America just seems to want to escalate this war into something more serious. And they're psychopaths. A lot of these people in charge are psychopaths. And I think we are all familiar with psychopaths. They're everywhere in everyday life. And I'm pretty sure that most of you guys especially have been in a nightclub buying a beer and you accidentally knock over someone's beer. And you apologise and say, "I'm sorry, I'll buy you another point." And the man looks at you with his tattoos all over his face and says, "That's not good enough. You did that on purpose." And then what do? What do? Do you take him on and get hurt? Do you run? No. What you do, you kick him in the crotch and then run. And it's the same even today when you're in your car and you give someone the finger for doing something stupid. And then as you look in your mirror, you see the red lights come up and they screech and they turn around and they chase you. And the next thing you know, they're right up your backside chasing you. Intimidation. And that's what psychopaths are. That's what they do. That's what they love. They're bullies. Big, big bullies. And the trouble with the psychopathic politicians, and a lot of them, is that they have very, very powerful lobbyists backing them up, because a lot of the lobbyists are very, very wealthy institutions like banks and big tech and big pharma, also run by psychopaths, and psychopaths tend to gather together in groups. I had a friend once who was a nurse in a mental hospital, and he once said to me, when they get a new patient in, that patient will go immediately to his group of people, whether they be a depressive, an alcoholic, suicidal, or a psychopath. They instinctively find their own people. And is anything going to happen with this war? Will a regime change in America happen? I don't think so. They thought just before this election started that it was going to be a walkover for the Republicans. I don't think that's going to happen. And even if it did happen, the changes to the regime won't happen until January anyway. So we're stuck. We're stuck in a situation where there are still no negotiations, and there should be negotiations. Everyone knows that. Everyone is saying, why aren't there negotiations? And then you get people like Boris the Brave, who went to the East many, many times and met their president, the cokehead, and told him never ever to give up and do not do negotiations. What sort of man is Boris doing that? Why did he do that? I don't understand. And I guess you don't understand either. But you can bet your bottom dollar that this war is going to see a lot of people die. And if it does escalate into something more, there'll be even more people die. Do we let that happen? How can we stop it? We have a vote. What does it mean? Nothing. Nothing at all. Your vote means nothing. It's just put there to give you the sense that you're in control, and you're not. None of us are in control. It's all controlled by psychopaths. Thanks for listening. What a depressing world we live in. Bye-bye.